Nigeria's traditional rulers are somewhat being humiliated by politicians and mocked by young people as they see them as puppets in the hand of politicians. On Let's Talk, the focus is royalty and politics. My name is Olujoke Mosaku, and my guest is Saint Kunle Agboola, President and Mission Director, Positive Youth and Family Life Mission Center, Abeokuta. But before we delve into the program proper, I'd like to remind you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on all of our social media platforms. Until then, please enjoy the ride with us. Thank you so much, Saint Kunle Agboola, for coming on the show. It's nice having you here.
Thank you, my sister. It's a pleasure.
Yes, I enjoy the part of the saint.
Yeah. Okay. And that's my name.
Yeah.
Saint Kunle Agboola. Yes, that name was a tag or label may sound funny, but it's real.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that
some
explanation.
people.
Now, what does it mean to be a king before the 21st century?
Before the 21st century, of course, not only in Africa, but in some other part of the world, particularly the ancient kingdoms of Europe. Every kingdom is being ruled by a king or an emperor. And an emperor is like a king of kings, if I choose that term, because under an emperor, there will be several other kings. That means so many other kingdoms coming together under a superior king, what you call maybe a supreme king. That is how we have an emperor. So now in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, that has been from time immemorial. Kingdoms, kings, empires, emperors. But you see, I think with time, changes, and that is just one thing. For those of us that are into history, we know changes is one of these permanent things that human being cannot do without. Even though it's difficult for us to adjust to change, but we have no option. Even what we call culture. Culture, for me, I define culture as a dynamic aspect of life that changes from place to place and from time to time. Though there are several factors that influences changes in culture. Events and people around and certain situations and circumstances may lead to eventually lead to changes. I also see culture as at a particular given time. So definitely, from time to time, from place to place, culture changes. And that is what I've seen that has affected the monarchical system all over the world, not just in Africa or in Nigeria.
Okay. Now let's talk about decentralization of power before Nigeria became a presidential system of government.
Decentralization. Of course, we had different system of a government and a constitution in the past, and this what do we call this? The British system, which we inherited initially, recognized the traditional authorities. They have the House of Chiefs and House of the Law, just like they have in Britain. But you can see that even presently now in UK, that is no longer the case. I think recently we had the coronation of King Charles. But you see, with all the pageantries and the celebration, it will have been greater than that if it were in those days when the king was really, when the royal family was really the royal family, the way they should be. But you see, all those things now, the past and the authorities have been removed gradually. And you see that the royal family is no longer what it used to be. So the same thing is happening to Nigeria. The prime minister that recognized the that is the parliamentary that recognize these traditional authorities. It's not what we are presently in there. So in those days, they still recognize them. At least I remember in the house of the people like Oba, so they were very prominent in decision making. The Sultan of So and that of Bali and all those traditional rulers were very prominent to be of Onitsha because the parliamentary system recognized a monarchical authority. So, but presently, the presidential system does not recognize that seems to still give the same prominence to is no longer what it used to be. The royal family now they just authority, no official authority, so to say. So, and I think another part of Africa, the only country so far that's still operating Swaziland. Swaziland is what we call absolute monarchy. The other group, I think in Morocco is having what we call constitutional monarchy. So, which is not absolute. So, there are changes depending on the people involved at a particular given time. So, I see what is happening in Nigeria. Yes, it may be funny, but it's the reality of our present dispensation. And but that does not mean that our traditional rulers should be despised outrightly.
Nigeria's traditional rulers retain huge influence in many parts of the country, but with recent events have made some young people question role of monarchy. They've questioned the role of monarchy in the 21st century. Now, what do you have to say about that?
Yes, just like I said earlier, we cannot, the constitutional role, they may have traditional roles, but not constitutional roles, except we want to upturn the whole thing, or we do a review and then reconstitute what is called our constitution now. I don't believe that it depends on the reality. I don't believe that maybe because we are practicing presidential system, which was adopted by, we can look at presidential system, readjust it, focus on our own present realities and our own environment and create our own system of government. The presidential system of government, presently as it's being practiced in America, we can see that it's not the same way in Nigeria. I remember one of the major problems I've seen as those that struggle for the was the school in Britain. Why Nnamdi Azikiwe school in America? And so you see the approach and attitude of Nnamdi Azikiwe being influenced purely by American thoughts. Why Awolowo understood that of British completely. So America as one country, one nation, then you can contest anywhere. Our state in Nigeria is based on what do you call it, tribal and ethnic setup. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, I understand.
So why in America it wasn't so? You can be in Chicago this year. In the next 2-3 years, you can relocate to maybe Memphis. Nobody will question your indigenship. But that is not the case with Nigeria. So that is a major difference between us and America. And if we are going to choose any system of government, we must look at our own uniqueness, not just completely just carry presidential system. We think it is going to work the way it's working in America. There are certain differences. So we must look at our own system here. So I think that is where the traditional rulers have been sidelined somehow, that in the presidential system, we did not consider their role. They have traditional roles. Of course, they have the direct grassroots interaction with the people. In fact, if I have my way, I would have seen that suggested that the traditional rulers should take the position of the local government chairman. because they are closer to the grassroots. The local government chairmen are supposed to be the grassroots, but then I think the traditional ruler are more closer to the grassroots of the people. So that is where I think if there's going to be an amendment, or if we want to really do it to still make them relevant, they can occupy that position constitutionally. But as it is presently in our constitution, there's no role for them. It's just traditional and ceremonial.
That means right now they are not relevant.
They are not relevant. Because now you see they are just playing that ceremonial heads. Now, even in Britain now, like I said before, all the colonies were run under the leadership of the Queen and the King in those days, as the case will be. Then when they come in the name of the Queen. Oh, this one, the Queen said this, the Queen said this. But now, they're not talking about if Britain is entering into any relationship with anybody now, international relation, they don't talk about the King or the Queen. It is the Prime Minister. So, whereas even America itself, now that we adopted this presidential system they don't even have what is called King and Queen. Do you realize that, man?
Yes, sir.
America does not have, America is one, in Western world, America is one country that I see that do not have ancient or traditional or ancient culture. It's a bundle of different kind of people just coming to settle. That's why they call it no man's land. Or God's own country, something like that. It's like people, I know the history of America is another thing for another day. But America, as we have it today, particularly USA, is a conglomeration of different people from different parts of the world. So there is no specific culture. So the culture that we see in America today is a contemporary culture, not what you can call traditional culture or ancient culture, or like what we have in Nigeria or in other parts of Africa. But that's why they call America New World. New World in those days, New World in history, they call it New World. Britain has culture, Greeks have culture, France has culture, and so many German, but America has no culture.
Yeah, let's quickly go on this break. We will be right back. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, the program is Let's Talk on DNTWOK, and I've been speaking with Saint Kunle Agboola, President and Mission Director, Positive Youth and Family Life Mission Center, Agboola. And we've been talking about royalty and politics. So if you're just joining us, please ensure you go along with us. Thank you once again for standing by. Thank you, Saint Kunle Agboola. It's been wonderful having you on the show. Thank you for standing by.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Now, moving forward, most monarchs, one way or the other, have been disrespected, but the one that caught the public eye was that of the former Emir of Kano, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, who was dethroned, and other monarchs who dare not be before politicians. You know, politicians who are just there for 4 to 8 years. And this monarch can be there for like 50 plus years. We just saw Queen Elizabeth die at the age of, she was on the throne for 70 years. And there are many prime ministers that have come and gone while she was on the throne.
Lamido Sanusi happens not to be the only person or only traditional ruler that has been dethroned by consistent authority or by president or governors or whosoever. I have a long list of many because in the first place, it is the consistent authority according to the constitution that we actually give them staff of office in the first place. So that is where, from the beginning. So if a king is elected or appointed by his people, and the staff of office is not given to him unless a governor or a president does that, then that means that staff of office belongs to the government, not to him, not to the people. If he cannot function unless, do you understand what I'm saying now?
Yes.
So that is where the error is. So, and he was not the first one. I think Abacha did the same thing to Sultan of Sokoto some years back. He was dethroned. In fact, he was brought even to court because he was accused of some, how do you call it, corruption practices, diverting of money made for a conglomerate of the northern region. So now, for a sultanate, somebody of that, a sultanate is equivalent to an emperor because so many other emirs are subject to the sultan. Now, for sultan to be brought to court, sentenced, and then exiled, that is many years ago. And I also remember there have been cases like that, even in the days of Olagbegi in the old western region. He was also sent off. He was removed by the government then. I think many years back, over 30 years or so, or maybe 40 years before he was restored back. So now there was another man in about maybe 10 years ago, Deji of Akure, who was embarrassed out of the throne because he was having issues, personal issue with the wife and the people. In fact, at the point, that one was so embarrassing that he got into a brawl with his wife on the street, that the youth in the community, on the town, had to take away the staff from the car of the king while he was fighting with the wife on the street. That is embarrassing and insulting to the throne. So I think from all indication, there are so many factors that are responsible for our royal families or the royal fathers, so to say, being subject to this humiliation. They themselves, many of them, have contributed to it. In the first place, I think the traditional institution that is responsible for selecting the kings or the emirs or the leaders also are questionable. Many of them are of questionable character because we have seen cases of people bribing certain aspirants to the throne, bribing the kingmakers. And they will now take decision that may not really favor the people, but because the person has bribed them, we have seen that, and some people will think, okay, this person is the rightful person to occupy that position, but because of his influence and his personal relationship or whatsoever, they will install him against the other. And I remember the same thing happened in the north that time. Dasuki and the other one, the same thing happened. I can't remember, but I knew there was a particular sultan that was supposed to be, but because of the influence and the certain agenda of the existing government, Dasuki was imposed. Dasuki was imposed as a sultan. So when it was time now for the people there was a protest, but the people couldn't withstand the Babangida government then. And so Dasuki was installed. But when the time came, Abacha removed that one, and when he was removed, people were rejoicing. I think I've forgotten the other man that was restored eventually. So now, when things like this happen, the same thing happened in some other towns, in the small towns in the southwest. Yeah, I've been to a court before where a king was came to court to come and report that his palace was burgled into, his wife raped by the youth in the town. Why? Because they had. So now, when things like this, how did you become the king in the first place? So these are things that we need to question. So now there are a lot of discrepancies and irregularities surrounding the selection and the appointment of these kings. And then things are no longer what it used to be. the traditional rulers who will consult the oracle the way they say, but now the oracles are saying it looks as if it is naira and dollar that is the oracle now that is speaking. So when that happens, then we see that, in fact, there's like that Deji of Akure then, he was never in town. He was abroad all years. Like he did not know what the palace life was like. But because of influence and money, he was appointed. At the end of the day, people want the kingmaker, but maybe he has blinded them. At the end of the day, this king will be going to nightclub. We go to nightclub, we leave the palace, we go to nightclub. And people will see him, getting drunk and so those are the things that people started crying against. So who are the people? The character of the people who choose as the traditional rulers today, that is one point. Do they merit it morally? Are they upright? Are they well informed about the traditional demands of the people? So those are some of the issues. Then now when you come to the fact that the present situation in the country does not have any constitutional role for traditional rulers, that says it all. So until that changes, then maybe we can have a different position for our traditional rulers. For me, as long as that is the situation where the constitution does not put any role, in fact, it is funny enough, I was able to do some underground work some years ago. I discovered that even things are being paid salary by the local government chairman. They are placed as staff under local government. You can prove me wrong, ma'am.
You know they are being paid.
Ma'am?
I said I know they are being paid salaries. They are placed
as being paid salary. So a king now that is not well established, that does not, so how much is the salary that they are paying the king? So a king now that is not well established.
It's only the first class kings that are actually the wealthy one.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike those in the rural areas.
Mm-hmm. So even those first class that have been, how much are they being paid? What is their salary? What level are they placed on in the civil service?
Yeah, but
when a king in the past will be the one that will collect the tax of the people, he will be the one that will execute all those things. Now, in those days, the king also have the court at his disposal, but all those things have been stripped off.
So what do you think can be done to change this?
Like I said earlier, there are two ways to it. Of course, we cannot run away from the fact that changes are coming, and we have to come to understand that fact. There are things we cannot do about changes, that we can just change, amend, and we can do some sifting. Now, our culture may need to change. Like I said, I'm an African man. Culturally, traditionally, I am a Pan-Africanist to the core. Even as a Christian, as a minister of the gospel, I'm an Africanist to the core. But the truth is that I am not blind to the fact that certain cultures have to change from time to time. But who is going to change that culture? Our people have to be conscious of it. That in history, there's what we call cultural collision. And cultural collision means two cultures coming together. We cannot avoid that because as we begin to interact from country to country, this and that, international relations here and there will be maybe marriages, just like it has happened in Nigerian society. We have marriages, intertribal marriages, this and that. So those things are changing. Oh, this is how we do in my place. This is how we do in your place. So at the end of the day, when there is intertribal marriages, what do? We have to blend. Based on understanding, you drop some of your own tradition, I drop some of my own, so that we can now face the real need. That will now give birth to a new culture. So if we want to retain this,
we have to put an end to this discussion. I wish we could continue, but we are way out of time. But thank you so much for your contribution so far. It's been wonderful. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And to you out there, thank you for being part of the show. I hope you've learned one or two things from the topic, and you now have a broader knowledge of what it means to be royal, and also not to blend politics and royalty, looking at the presidential system of government that has been run in Nigeria, and making the kings irrelevant. But that aside, let's ensure we do better. Until next time, when I come your way again with another topic, I remain Olujoke Masako. Bye for now.